we're there. I think we're more spiritual. I think we really believe in like the afterlife and heaven and just really spiritual.
Yeah.
And my whole family is. And we just live our lives like that. We just try to be good people and respect other people and be kind.
Well, that's a Christian.
And that is, yeah, like
Bali, and a woman, a blind medium, came up to me and said that I was going to have another son and it was going to be my father reincarnated. And she had no idea that no one knew, no one on my crew, no one knew that I had a surrogate that was pregnant with a boy.
Awesome. Guys, we had the best reading. The Long Island medium is in Calabasas. Can you believe this? She's at my house.
Now, some of you may be surprised by how many Christians actually believe that what you just watched is acceptable to the Most High. In fact, some of you even watching may believe that that is acceptable behavior for a Christian, which is why I'm making this video today. Calling yourself a Christian in America has almost become void of meaning because we behave just like the rest of the world. They look at us and see that there's no difference in the way that we live our lives. So why then would they even want to come to the faith? Many of us has grew up in Christian households, but that doesn't mean that we understand what it means to be a believer of the Messiah. Another thing is we believe, but we are ignorant to who our enemies are in this world. So-called Christians get so caught up in the materialistic nature of this world that they often forget that we are still caught up in spiritual warfare. Now today, many people write these things off as just fantasy and made up things, but our ancient ancestors of the past were fully aware of the supernatural forces that play a role in this world.
But these fiery, invisible beings predate the religion of Islam and existed as a very prominent and important part of the lives, culture, and religion of the pre-Islamic Arabs. Scholars are unsure about the actual origins of the jinn and where they come from. Some speculate and think that they may have originally been gods in the Middle Eastern, generally the Middle Eastern region, polytheistic gods who were then kind of dethroned as the theology in the region became a bit more complex. And
historically, Oni, meaning demon or ogre, was a common motif in Japanese folklore and mythology, and the masks were used in various traditional ceremonies and performances. One of the main purposes of the Oni masks was to ward off evil spirits and bring good luck. It was believed that wearing an Oni mask would scare away malevolent spirits and protect the wearer.
It was a talisman of protection. Now, dream catchers don't just protect from bad dreams, they protect from evil spirits, evil thoughts, and evil ideas.
These things are no coincidences. In many different cultures, you can see that our ancient ancestors were fully aware that we lived in the spiritual world. And they knew very well that evil spirits existed. And every culture had their own rituals and customs in dealing with these evil spirits. As far as believers in Yashua the Messiah, the Bible tells us how to deal with these evil spirits. Not only that, but it also tells us where they come from. But before I get into the scripture, I first want to share a story of my own encounter with the supernatural. This encounter is the reason why I knew at an early age that we are not alone in this universe and there are spiritual forces at hand. Now, I don't want you to be freaked out on what I'm about to say because the only thing we should fear in this world is the Most High. At the time, I was maybe around like 7 years old, and we were visiting a friend's house while all the grown-ups decided to go to the club or either the casino and do what grown folks do. And they left all their kids behind, so we decided to play hide and seek that night. It was me, my brother, and about 7 other kids there, I believe. Now the kids who lived in the house were telling us stories about how the house was haunted and how they seen ghosts or whatnot, but we didn't really think much of it. We thought it was just made up or something. So we turned all the lights off in the house and we began to play hide and seek. After playing a couple rounds, we all gathered back together inside of the living room, but the lights were still off at this point. Out of nowhere, as I glanced to my right, I seen something glowing in the dark. At that time, I couldn't describe what it was. I just seen a ball of white light just floating in the room. We had no idea what this was, and it freaked us out. We were kind of froze up in that moment, so it lasted for maybe around 30 seconds until someone finally decided to turn on the lights, and then it started to vanish away. Now, I didn't witness this alone. I was with others, so I know for certain that whatever I saw was real, and this is a true story. The only way I can describe what I saw today is that it looked like a white spherical orb. It was not like the orbs that people capture on cameras today. This was something that I seen physically with my bare eyes. Now, I don't know what it was then, and I still don't know what it was today, and I'm not going to speculate on what it was, because I don't know whether it was a good spirit or a bad spirit, but I do know that nothing bad happened that night. Our parents came back and we all went home. Now, some may say that this was a guardian angel or a deceased loved one watching over us, but we should be very careful of assuming those things when it comes to the supernatural. Regardless of what it was that we saw that night, the only reason I'm sharing this story is to testify that I'm a witness to the spiritual side of this world. Not everyone has these type of encounters, which is probably for the best, but it also can lead people to think that these things are totally made up and not real. But I'm here to tell you that these things are very real, so it's important to understand what these things are and where they come from. Now, as believers, we all know that there are holy angels as well as the Most High, the Father. But where do these evil spirits come from, or these so-called demons come from? See, the church really never speaks on that, and that only does a disservice to all believers, because the Most High says that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual principalities. So I'm going to explain where these evil spirits come from and why we should be aware of them as believers. In Jude chapter 1 verse 6 it says, "And the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he has reserved in everlasting chains under darkness, to the judgment of the great day." Now, we all know the story of how Satan fell from heaven, but we never really learned how all these other angels fell away. The reason for this is because the Catholic Church removed these books from the Bible. The book of Enoch talks about how these angels fell from heaven. Enoch was a great-grandson of Adam, so this took place before the flood happened. According to the book of Enoch, these angels, which was known as the Watchers, were only meant to watch and observe humans from heaven. The only time they were meant to interact with humans is when God himself had declared to do so. But instead of obeying the orders of the Most High, they took it upon themselves in secrecy to go down into the earth to engage with the humans. In the book, it explains how these angels taught mankind witchcraft as well as weapons of war. It even says they taught women how to beautify themselves with makeup. So their first mistake was leaving their heavenly realm to engage with humans and disobeying the word of the Most High. Their second mistake was they became attracted to these beautiful women, which were only reserved for men, and they began to lust after them. And this is what leads us to Genesis 6. Genesis 6 says, "There were Nephilim on earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of the Most High, which are angels, went into the daughters of humans and had children by them. These children became the Nephilim, which is another word for giants. These were hybrid beings who were half men and half angelic." The book of Enoch goes more into detail about the Nephilim, but to summarize it, the Nephilim became evil themselves. They began to shed blood on earth, and they also began to genetically modify the creation of the Most High by combining animals and different flesh together. This is where the concept came from with the ancient Sumerians, who had wall carvings of there being a half man and half horse. All of these things is the reason why the Most High decided to flood the earth. He wanted to destroy the Nephilim, who were never meant to exist in the first place. All these things happened out of rebellion because of the angels. They are the reason why mankind began to fall away from the Most High. That is why Jude 1:6 says that he has reserved them in chains for everlasting fire. But as far as the Nephilim, their judgment was the flood. They all died in the flood, but since they were also hybrid beings, their spirits remained on earth, and they became known as evil spirits in ancient times. Today, we call them demons. In Matthew chapter 12, verse 43, it says, "When the unclean spirit has gone out of a person, it passes through waterless places seeking rest, but finds none." So after the flood, not only did these demons begin to wreak havoc on humans, but they also had the ability to possess them, and this is what they most sought after. In the times that Yashua walked the earth, he casted out these demons, and they were well aware of who he was. Not only was they aware of the Messiah, but they also feared that the time of judgment had already come during his time period. But it is reserved for the end of the world. It is Yashua the Messiah who gives us power over these fallen angels and demons when we walk in his name. It is when we live in rebellion and the Spirit departs from us that these angels and demons begin to wreak havoc on our lives. This is why Ephesians 6:12 warns us that we wrestle not against flesh and blood. It is fallen angels and demons influencing people who are blind to the truth of the Most High and those who live in rebellion. Before the Messiah walked the earth, these fallen angels and demons were once the gods of the ancient world. In Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 31, it says, "You shall not worship Yahuwah in that way, for every abominable thing that Yahuwah hates, they have done for their gods, for they even burn their sons and their daughters in the fire to their gods." This is why there were so many pagan gods in the ancient world. It was these evil spirits leading mankind away from the Most High. In the first book of Corinthians, chapter 10, verse 20, it says, "No, I imply that with pagan sacrifice they offer to demons and not to Yahuwah. I do not want you to be participants with the demons." So all these rituals, such as human sacrifice or child sacrifice, were not being done just to please worthless idols, but they were being offered to the demons who hid behind these idols. Psalms 115, verse 8, "But their idols, those who make them, will be like them, and so will all who trust in them." Even today, these demons still hide behind idols. Some of these idols that people tend to look up to are witches, Satanists, and demon-possessed. And the book of Psalms says those who idolize them will become like them. Revelation chapter 9, verse 20, "The rest of mankind who were not killed by these plagues still did not repent of the works of their hands. They did not stop worshiping demons and idols of gold, silver, bronze, stone, and wood, idols that cannot see or hear or walk." These false idols of today are not hiding the fact that they are being manipulated and possessed by these evil demons. It is all being on full display for people to see, so that when they idolize these people, you're really idolizing what's behind them.
Crazy boy who lives in me, and he says the things that I don't want to say. He was born, just a few months ago. I think he was born out of rage. He was conceived in rage. So he bashes everyone. He threatens to beat people, and he's violent.
That must be nice.
Sasha Fierce different than I am.
Well, I know, definitely wearing that bodysuit, I could never walk out here and do that.
Does Sasha Fierce ever go home?
Sometimes, but not often, only on special occasions.
She ever show up when you're getting ready to go on stage and perform, does Sasha Fierce, when does she show up?
Usually when I hear the crowd, when I put on my stilettos, when the moment right before when you're nervous and that other thing kind of takes over for you. Then Sasha Fierce appears, and my posture and the way I speak and everything is different.
But no, is it like you were talking
The most, I think, at the platform for sure. It was, it's It's that weird, eerie feeling, but it was a good feeling. You know, I don't think I could have done it without him being there.
Him, Oscar.
Oscar, yeah.
The energy of Oscar.
The energy of Oscar, his presence, for sure.
Yeah.
Just is able to be so...
Afro-Caribbean paint, like a white and black paint, and black out my eyes, so I look like this sort of Afro-Caribbean voodoo icon. And then I would sew in bits of Egyptian artifacts that were thousands of years old into my costume and gather some onyx or tourmaline or something that was meant to have vibrations. And who knows if it works or doesn't, but for me it was an idea of like trying to stimulate my mind or trick my mind into believing I was this character from another dimension. And I would walk on the set and then wouldn't speak to anybody, wouldn't say a word, so I projected this aura of horror, which created fear in my fellow actors, which then inspired me to believe I really was this character.
I was hitting a block, right? I was like, oh, I'm not doing it right? So I went in the corner and then I was looking at the wall and I was like, come on, devil, right? Come to me, because I had to do something like crazy, right? I had nightmares for a month. So it does come
to it or after?
After. Like I had nightmares every day. Like I felt that energy.
Oh, interesting.
You know, and I had to pray and do all this stuff to like get rid of it. And you know, you call your mom up and you're like, bring me back to life. And that stuff is real.
So from their own mouths, these so-called idols admit that demons and the energy that possesses them are very real. The devil is literally snatching souls. It is not a game. Modern day idols are still sacrificing humans to these demons. So if you're one of those persons that's into celebrity worship, just be aware of what's really going on, because they are.
And we just live our lives like that. We just try to be good people and respect other people and be kind.
Well, that's a Christian.
And that is...
Intelligence, we are summoning the demon. Intelligence, we are summoning the demon.